Welcome to the Debit This, Credit That podcast with Wheeler Accountants located in San Jose, California. In this podcast, we discuss how to solve accounting challenges in both your personal life and your business. We take an energetic, tech-savvy approach to solving accounting challenges that steal your focus and your time. Now, on to the show with your tech-savvy accounting experts, Matt Wheeler and Michael Bryant.
All right, welcome to episode 37 of the Debit This, Credit That podcast. We're back with Alan Wang, and we had a great conversation the first time talking about the current state of the real estate market and what buyers can be doing in this market. We're going to talk a little more about the market, about the tax law changes that are affecting buyers and sellers, and then some of the information on kind of the investment real estate market and everything else. So without further ado, here we go with Alan Wang on our second part of our podcast series. Talked a little bit about buyers and everything, and when we talked about the stability of the market, do you have any suggestions on the sell side, things that sellers can do to maximize the value in this kind of flat, slightly downtrending market?
Absolutely. We talked about this a little bit. I'll just reiterate it again. As a seller, there are always going to be buyers out there, right? And it just depends on what price we settle on. I mean, that's at a price somebody will buy your house. And I think that's the hardest part for sellers is, we all think our house is the best. I think my house is the best. I poured all this, love and labor into the house, and we all do, and that's absolutely correct. Just with the shifting market, just getting to grips with it. Stop looking at the April numbers. That was the peak. We're already off peak now, and we can't look at those numbers anymore. We have to look at what the market is now. If you can accept those numbers now, then we'll sell your home. It's going to sell. It will move. If you can't, then just hold on. Right? If you don't need to sell, don't. Right? That's some sellers have told you, hey, if you're not in a hurry and you want that number, let's hold and see what happens. Right? It's not happening right now. Okay. The only question is how much worse is it going to get? Right. I mean, that's the question we don't know. If you can hold for a long run, good. Let's just hold. We'll be fine. But if you need to sell in the next 1 or 2 years, no promise is going to be better next year.
Right.
But on the selling side, though, it used to be, I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to put my house on the market. Someone's going to buy it, and I'll have 20 offers and I'll be good to go. Well, it's not that case anymore. So you do need to make your product the most attractive on the market. Whatever I try to tell sellers, I'm not telling you to take on a $200,000 remodeling project, but let's do basic items to get the house in good shape. Right? There are certain things we can do. Right? A paint job goes a long way. New carpets go a long way. Maybe laminate floors go a long way. Getting those cabinets nicer go a long way. But more importantly, when you look at things on the inspection reports, actually fixing a lot of those would help a buyer.
Yeah,
a lot. They don't nit about little things, right? Because now they can. We had an open house in Sunnyvale last weekend. Everyone walked in in the condo said, "Oh, there's no washer and dryer." I'm going, really? That's a deal
an
breaker.
Easy fix.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker for you. We'll buy one for you. It's not an issue.
Yeah, $1,000.
Yeah, let's not make that. But that's what people are nitpicking about now.
Interesting.
So I make those part of our dialogue with them and say, hey, you know what? If that's a deal breaker for you, we'll buy the wash and dryer for you. Okay, let's not let those things. But that's what's happening. People are getting hung up over little things. So, for example, if the cost is not too high, maybe clearing all these major items on a termite report might be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
The major items on a property inspection, let's just get them done, right? So people don't have these objections as move-in ready as possible. The homes that are brand new or remodeled, they still move. They're moving really well still. Mm-hmm. So the buyers are more picky, and if there's less objections, they're more likely to move forward. Definitely, as a seller, I would say just number one, be realistic on price in the market we're in. Be more patient on time as well. Everyone, they panic after the first open house. They go, oh, there's only 8 people? Yeah, I told you it's going to take at least 30 to 45 days to move this thing. We got to be patient with it, okay? And number 3, let's remove as many objections off the property condition as possible.
How about staging? I've heard a lot about staging, and I always thought it was kind of for the higher end homes anyways, but what do you recommend for sellers in regards to staging their house?
Absolutely do it. It's worth it. The cost it's not even that much. The cost, it could go anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, depending how big your house is. For our guys will do it for 2 months, right? For 2 months of time. So it's totally worth it. It's all psychological at the end of the day.
Sure.
And the way these guys do it, they do a great job of maximizing the space, right? You may not even use it that way, but you go in and you go, wow, it feels spacious. It's because they've spaced it. We basically bring in the furniture. We put a tiny couch here that you may not really use, but in a spot, and then you go, wow, it's a huge room, but in reality, you may not use it that way, but when you come in, you go, wow, this feels like a large room. It feels like there's a lot of space. Oh yeah, this is the dining area. You kind of do the work for them, so they don't have to work too hard. Imagine
they
themselves.
They can picture them.
Yeah, exactly. And when you go into a vacant home, it's just empty and just blah, right? And you're like, I'm not.
Clean here, honey. There's no kids' toys on the ground.
That's great. Yeah, this is how I want my house, right? And so when you model it out, they really picture themselves living there. We had a buyer come through last week to one of our stage homes. It wasn't even a big house. It was a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,200 square foot house. We staged it anyways, and this buyer actually wanted to have a direct dialogue with me for whatever reason. So the buyer agent came and we sat in the living room together. Mom sat there, she sat there, agent sat next to me, and we dialogued about the house, and it was nice. I mean, I think they enjoyed and they felt at home. This is obviously a really strange situation, but and imagine if there was no furniture. I don't know what we'd be doing. They were just standing around folding our arms, talking. It definitely felt really homey. And I think a lot of buyers, when they buy a house, they do sit and just kind of absorb, especially the living area. Right? Could I watch TV here? And could I live here? Can I picture myself living here? And it's super emotional, and I think it's definitely works, and it's much better than having people will pay more if they get that feeling.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alan, we had a big tax law change back January 1st, impacting 2018 and for the next 7-8 years, basically. Biggest tax reform bill we've seen in over 30 years, and there's a lot affecting high income tax states like California, with the high property taxes, and then also just real estate directly with the mortgage interest change, the amount of debt you can have, and that whole thing. Have you seen that impacting buyers at all in this market, or is that not really a consideration?
I mean, we're getting our arms around it earlier this year, and I think you're probably the best person to answer that question about the April timeframe. It's that what might have been another cause of this downturn. And from my perspective, our buyers don't buy because of tax reasons. I mean, they buy because of family reasons or personal reasons. Either they're tired of renting, or they have a child coming, or they're getting married, or their parents are moving from abroad, or something like that. And they're life reasons they're buying houses, not tax reasons per se. So I haven't seen it stop people from buying, but love to hear your perspective on that, what you're seeing.
Yeah, I had a lot of clients ask about it, especially people that were looking to buy and that kind of thing. I agree with you. I don't think it's been a huge impact. The mortgage change where now you can only deduct interest on $750,000 of debt versus it was $1 million or actually 1.1 before, now down to $1 million. Those people are grandfathered in if you still had a mortgage before December of last year. But the new buyers with the $750,000 mortgage, you lose out on the interest deduction on $250,000 of debt. But the rates are still so low that I think we're only talking maybe a few $1,000s a year of difference in bottom line to people. And compared to the home values that are 7 figures or plus, that's a drop in the bucket. So it's not really going to be a major consideration. People were more worried, I think, about the property tax limitation because now you can only deduct $10,000 of a combination of your state income taxes, the property taxes, and like DMV fees, kind of personal property tax stuff. That's impacting some people. If you're over around $700,000-800,000 of income, you're pretty much a loser under the new tax law, most likely. If you're like a W-2 earner, you're paying more because you can't deduct the state taxes anymore. But most people in the couple $100,000 to like $600,000-700,000 range, they were already heavily into AMT, alternative minimum tax. And even under the old tax law, you couldn't deduct all your state income taxes or property taxes because of the AMT. And the AMT's changed so much, people are actually coming out of it now. What we're seeing in our projections is that clients will owe more regular tax, but then they'll get an even bigger benefit on a reduction in AMT, and they'll be a net winner. So it really doesn't impact them at all that much, in my opinion. Most people are better off under the law still. It's just your real high earners, your top people are getting hit more, but generally they're the ones that can afford it anyway, so it's not that big of a concern.
And really buying a new house or being a first-time home buyer, that's like a really good opportunity for some tax planning because then they will know what their free cash flow is going to be like and what the impact of their purchase is. So another time for some tax planning.
Yeah, and I mean, long-term owning is, heavily favored in our tax law. You can deduct the property taxes, you can deduct the mortgage interest. There's a whole host of reasons why it's still beneficial. The realtor lobby is strong in Washington.
They are very strong. Yes, they are.
So I don't see that stuff going away or changing much. I think it's still going to be a major benefit to owning, although just slightly reduced now under the new law, I think, with the mortgage thing. But if you do have a mortgage before that was, over 1.1, you do want to keep in mind now the limit is now $1 million, so you may want to be paying that down a little bit or at least consider it. Again, as Michael mentioned, good time for tax planning now under the new law, whether you're a prospective home buyer or an existing one, and just curious how the laws impact you.
Oh, that's good. That's good background. That explains why a lot of folks aren't panicking, because probably net, they're actually doing okay, if not the same, actually maybe even a little bit better off.
Yeah, I wonder how much of the market is actually aware that they're, I guess, not an issue or not. People still, I think, are assuming that they can't deduct as much and it's going to impact them negatively, but that's usually not the case. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, but over time people will understand it and everything. So
yeah, they could be kind of going in with their blinders on because they just want to make this happen. But again, it's, as you had mentioned, it's the largest purchase that you're going to make in your life, so it's probably good to plan around that and go into that purchase with a really good understanding of how that's going to impact their lives going forward.
Absolutely.
So, Alan, what about the investment real estate market? Do you deal with many investors looking to buy single-family homes for rental or multifamily or anything? And have you seen that market change at all in terms of buyers or sellers?
I do deal with investors. There's two groups. There's one that they buy for a portfolio and they rent them out, and there's another group that does flipping. The group, let's talk about the first group. It's very tough to run that portfolio business out here. If you run the numbers in the Bay Area, you'd have to down about 50% in order to break even. And basically you're banking for appreciation, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're an investor and that's your only bet.
Even with those high rents, huh?
No, trust me, I've run the numbers for myself many times. It never really. You're much better off in other states where home prices are low, and you can even cash flow positive on them. They may not appreciate as fast, but you're getting cash flow and you're putting less capital. You don't want to tie up 50%. I mean, I just running numbers in Cambrian the other day, $1 million house. I think the rent was clocking at around 3 some odd thousand, and then the numbers came out to be down about half. So property tax, insurance, everything. That's a lot of capital to tie up for 0% return and just banking appreciation, which is not happening right now. If you're holding it for 10, okay, but I think there's probably better investments. On the flipping side, up until April was a great business to be in. You would just buy the house, 2 months later you would turn it, and you would turn it for $100,000-$200,000 profit or whatever it is. They come out at least 10% usually on these flips. Right now, if you're a flipper, I would worry, especially if you're banking on the seasons. Right now may not be a bad time to pick up something in the fall or winter and then turn it in the spring where there's generally less inventory. That's a strategy I've seen work in the past. This year, I'm not so convinced about that strategy, given that I know a lot of folks who haven't sold this fall or winter are going to go back on the market in the spring. And they're all ready to go already. A lot of the houses are vacant and staged.
Yeah.
We have some clients even ready to just leave the staging in there and then bring it back on in February if we have to.
Really? Yeah.
So I'm a little concerned that we may not have the low inventory situation that we usually do in the springtime. So as a flipper, I had a call from a flipper the other day asking me how much one of my houses sold for. And he says, I'm so worried right now. I just bought my house down the street for X amount. I'm going, oof. I didn't want to say anything versus bubble, but definitely he was down from the way people are offering on our house down the street. And if he's going to flip it, it'd be better. I don't know. It's tough. Flippers, I would say be careful right now in this market because it's going downwards, not going upwards.
Yeah, most of mine I've seen have left the area in terms of flipping a while ago and gone to some more of the fringe markets where they can still do something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if you're wise, you would have done that long ago. Yeah, because it's just the numbers wouldn't work. We're working here for a while.
Yeah. Well, and like I mentioned, the developers too, they got the rising construction costs and they got now homes sitting on the market, especially doing higher end stuff. So now they're carrying more for a longer period of time and they're paying construction loan interest or whatever. That just eats into your return.
It does. That's why they're more willing to deal.
Yeah.
Do you deal with any outside of the market or outside of the area, outside of like the San Jose area, or is you primarily focus here in San Jose?
Our team is pretty broad, actually. We cover all of Santa Clara County.
Okay.
I have an agent in Morgan Hill even. We have another agent on the peninsula, San Mateo area. So we go up to about South San Francisco on the peninsula. We have a partner that handles San Francisco. It's a very niche market. And so they handle at their East Bay will generally go up to about Union City. For certain clients, I have a client tomorrow. I'm taking to Pleasanton to look at some of their bigger homes over there. But I have a partner that generally handles deeper into the East Bay, San Ramon, Danville, Pleasanton, and those areas.
Do you have anything else you wanted to cover here, Alan, that you think would be beneficial for our listeners to know about the market right now, or anything real estate related, really?
I would just say it's not doom and gloom. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the market's stable and it's healthy, I believe. I don't think it was ever healthy before. It was a little absolutely unhealthy, especially if you're a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's healthy now, right? It's more balanced and it's stabilizing, which I think it was much needed. So I think that's a good thing. If homes are still selling, don't panic. 30 to 45 days is still excellent. If you ask anyone around the nation, that'd be at least an average or even above average performance on days on market.
Right.
As far as real estate, I envision real estate, and it always has been the case, as a long-term investment. Now, don't panic. If you don't need to sell, don't. And if you do, then we'll have to talk about the realities of it. But it's always take advantage of the opportunities as a buyer. But I'm all about the long term. I tend to like to hold my houses at least 10 years, and you'll be able to ride out any downturn, especially in the Bay Area. We're very resilient here. It's such a unique place. That you'll be fine in the long run, and that's what I've seen in the trend charts for the last 50 years. Right. The other thing I would say, I don't know how to solve this problem. We kind of talked about it, which is how do we help a lot of the folks that are not in tech and don't have the stock options, and that's something I haven't quite figured out how. I know we're all trying to lobby for more affordable housing and all that, but at the end of the day, there's just so much tech stock money, equity money, buying houses, and everyone else is left behind. And it's really, really unfortunate that people have to move out of here because they can't buy a house. And that's something that's definitely heavy on my heart. And I'd love to hear suggestions on how we solve this issue. But that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Probably a whole series of podcasts with some politicians giving us all their ideas, but
yeah, not one that we will be able to solve in the short term, for sure.
Tough. Definitely a problem, though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Alan, thanks for coming on. Can you let our listeners know how to get in contact with you and your team if they do have any questions on buying or selling a home or thinking about doing something?
Yeah, absolutely. We're easy to reach. You can call, text, email. You can call me at 408-313-4352 or text me. Also, my email is alan@alanwangrealty.com, and we're in Santa Clara off Mission College. So you come visit us, set up a time. Happy to come to you, do coffee, or come preview your home. We're always here. We love just consulting with you and seeing how we can possibly help you with your real estate needs.
And you also have a website and social?
Absolutely, www.alanwangrealty.com. And we have a Facebook page, Alan Wang Realty. We have an Instagram. You name it, we've got it. So yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn, WeChat, WhatsApp. We're all out there.
It's great.
Fantastic. That's it for today's episode of Debit This, Credit That. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our special guest. Please remember to follow us on social media.